For those of you who don't know, everyone seated at this table is from Truth Revolt. And really our mission at Truth Revolt was best defined by the Obama administration when they said, punch back twice as hard. I don't think that they knew when they were saying that a virulent right-wing organization like us would co-opt their slogan, but that's exactly what we've done. We call it plagiarism in our business, but it's really the whole internet runs on it. Don't over. What we do at Truth Revolt is we think of ourselves as both the activism wing of the David Horowitz Freedom Center and also as the marketing wing of the Freedom Center. We're going to talk about both of those things as we get started. But the people who are at this table at the moment are all people who are involved in our Truth Revolt Original Videos program. Many of you may have seen the videos that we're releasing. Andrew Klavan does a video series called The Revolting Truth. Bill does a series called Firewall. It's impossible for the record to know which one of the two they were clapping for, and I don't want to start any fights, so I'm not even going to speculate.
Oh, we know.
And Ben has a video series that's called Reality Check. And we're very pleased with our video series. To date, we've been viewed by more than 14 million people in the 11, 12 months that we've been doing the videos, which is an extraordinary number. One of the things that we like to say about the numbers, if you were to compare those to television, more people, our average video does 150,000 views. Very regularly we do 300, 400,000, and some of our breakaway videos are over 1 million. Bill has the record right now with a video about the riots in Ferguson, which is at 1.2 million views. And for context...
4 million for Number One with a Bullet.
This is absolutely true. We have a video called Number One with a Bullet, which on a different platform on Facebook was viewed by 4 million people. And for context, the entire primetime lineup of MSNBC is viewed by fewer than 1 million people. So it's fair to say that our videos are reaching more people than engage in many instances than engage MSNBC. More people watch the average Bill Whittle video than watch Al Sharpton on any given night, and we think that's a damn good thing.
Actually, I think more people are in this room than
We're trying to make it seem impressive, though. What we like to think of ourselves at Truth Revolt Originals is that we're storytellers. And storytelling, as anyone who was at the dinner last night and got to hear Bill's excellent speech, as you know, storytelling is something that's severely missing from our movement as a whole. And we all basically share the view that that's a real tragedy, because the greatest story ever told really is the story that conservatives can claim as their own. It's a story that in literature is called the hero's journey. And it's basically the idea that one man who has noble blood running through his veins can correct the mistakes of his fathers and can bring about the sort of peace, prosperity, and justice that once used to reign. And that's why we're here. We're here to perhaps help take some of these great values that our movement has and put them into a form where people engage them. You know, a New York Times best-selling New York Times best-selling nonfiction book in the political space will sell fewer than 50,000 copies. And they've done studies that say fewer than 10% of the people who purchase those books actually read them, which means a New York Times best-selling political book is read by 5,000 people. And you compare that 150,000 people watching each one of these men's videos every single week, and it'll begin to paint for you a picture of just what kind of reach we have. And it's a work that David has given us the power to do over the last year. We're going to talk a little bit about what it means to us, about what it means to the greater cultural battle space, and about how we might continue to grow it and reach ever larger audiences as this panel goes on. And so with that, once again, I'll introduce the guys: Andrew Klavan, Bill Whittle, Ben Shapiro. I'm Jeremy Boring, and we'll have a nice conversation now. You're really moving beyond just speaking openly, talking head format about various pieces of policy, and you're using satire and sort of entertainment as a means to carry that message forward. Could you talk to us a little bit about sort of your perspective on that and why you think that adds value to the conversation?
Well, because so much of what leftists say, not only is untrue, even they don't believe it. And so it's based on the idea that somehow convincing yourself of a lie is virtuous. I always think, a lot of leftism is based on moral relativism that becomes multiculturalism, that one culture is just as good as another. And I always think, that was most eloquently stated by Hamlet when he said, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And Hamlet said that when he was pretending to be insane. And what Shakespeare was saying is not only is moral relativism insane, it's only pretend insane because nobody really believes it. And so the humor, the comedy of leftism is right there, waiting to be picked up. It's like fruit lying on the ground, and since I don't like to work very hard, it's easy. It's easy for me to pick it up. I mean, we live in a culture where basically, if Jon Stewart, who's a talented guy, but if Jon Stewart goes on TV, as he so often does, and says, screw Dick Cheney, the next day he's on the cover of Time magazine, with the comic genius, the comic styling's the genius, whereas if you come out and say, screw Barack Obama, it's like, you're a racist. That's a terrible thing to say.
Not funny.
Not funny. One of the chief writers for Saturday Night Live said he just couldn't satirize Barack Obama because he was like a smooth wall of obsidian. There was nothing to cling to as he climbed up toward humor. And I'm thinking, you have got to be kidding me. This is like that Chum Gang graduate who is now the president of the United States after having achieved nothing. So all I'm doing really is just pointing out what they're saying. Sometimes I only have to repeat what they're saying. And it's funny. It's funny because everybody, even they, know it's untrue. And that's just a comic situation.
Well, it's interesting that you use mockery to assault the left, which is something that they've sort of pioneered using against us, and you don't see anyone on our side using it the other way. Bill, you do something similar, although with a slightly different slant, in that you use one of the tools of the left, which is their sort of moral indignation. They call us names. You may be the only guy in the movement who routinely actually takes that fight to them, actually challenges them at the moral level. Could you talk a little bit about that and how you identified that as a tactic and how you think it might be used by others?
Well, that's really it, right? I mean, their political philosophy is predicated on one thing only, and that is that we're better people than you are. Their policies don't make any sense. The destruction, just as an example, the destruction of black America over the last 40 years as we've engaged in these progressive policies is self-evident to anybody. And they're dependent upon this sense of unearned moral superiority to not win an argument because they can't win an argument. They're dependent on their sense of unearned moral superiority to make sure that there is no argument. In other words, if you disagree with the president's spending, you're a racist, so shut up. Or if you have a problem with talking about Hillary Clinton, then you're a misogynist, so shut up. And you're an evil person, so shut up, and so we don't have to listen to you. And so this is the only weapon they have. It's all they've got. It's all there is. And it occurred to me not too long ago that every time we go directly at that unearned moral superiority, once that is destroyed, it is game over. Because unlike them, we have the ammunition, we have the rhetorical ammunition, we have the factual ammunition. Our policies make sense, our policies work. We don't have to start off by saying, well, I'm a socialist. Anytime anybody says to me at all, I'm a socialist, the first thing I go to is, let's talk about the 150 million people killed by socialists. Before we have another word out of your mouth about anything, let's talk about the 150 million men, women, and children who were shot in the back of the head in camps in National Socialism or in the basement of the Lubyanka. Let's talk about the 150 million people who have been killed in order for you to feel better about yourself. We're not going to talk about anything else until we deal with these people. These people are as real as the people in this room today. They were individuals. They were executed in cold blood because of collectivism. So if you want to make a collectivist argument about cell phone usage, that's fine. We're going to talk about 150 million corpses on the side of your particular political philosophy. You don't get to walk away from them. Oh, well, that's different. Why is it different? Well, that was bad socialism. Why was it bad? Well, Stalin was not, Stalin took over and Stalin was an evil guy. Stalin took over the apparatus built by Lenin. Lenin built the apparatus. Lenin sent innocent people to their deaths, fully aware that they were innocent people. Well, the Russians didn't do it right. Well, what about the Chinese? They killed 50 million people. Well, they didn't do it right either. What about the Cambodians? They killed 7 million people. They didn't do it right either. What about the Cubans? They've killed millions of people or put other millions of people in jail. Well, they're not doing it right either. What about Nicaragua, where all these people are being gunned down or oppressed? Well, they're not doing it right either. What about Vietnam, where they killed 7 million people after we lost the war? We won the war, lost the peace. They went in and executed thousands, millions of people, hundreds of Super Bowls full of innocent people. Well, they didn't do it right either. Well, comes a point, when you start to say to yourself, well, maybe maybe it just can't be done right. Did the thought ever occur to you that your collectivist vision of putting all of the power of the giant, heartless, soulless state in the hands of a few elitists who can't open a jackknife, that the thought that this is the inevitable result of your political philosophy? And then all of a sudden, we're not talking about health care anymore. We're talking about the only real difference between people. One of the things about the abortion issue that I think is really illuminating is this. In the abortion issue, we have two sides. There's pro-life and there's pro-choice. These are advertising terms. Right? These are advertising terms designed to make our side look morally superior. I'm pro-life. Well, if you're opposed to me, you've got to be pro-death then, right? I'm pro-choice. Well, if you're opposed to me, then you've got to be a person who's against any kind of choice whatsoever. They're advertising terms. So if we're going to talk about abortion, let's talk about it with clarity. We're either pro-abortion or anti-abortion. That's fair to both sides, right? That's a fair way to talk about it and get down to brass tacks. I bring this up only to say that all of these labels like liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, we get into this kind of sophistry. It's true, but it is sophistry. We're conservatives who are trying to conserve classical liberalism. And we can have this kind of discussion all the time, but really when you get right down to it, there are in fact two kinds of political philosophies. There are collectivists and there are individualists. And that's a fair way to describe both teams. And that's where I go. I'm an individualist. They're a collectivist. And when you have a collectivist political structure, people end up dying. When you protect the rights of the individual, you get Disneyland. Any questions?
It's a toss-up.
So Ben, you're really, you sign our checks.
So praise me highly.
What a wonderful guy.
Yeah, so we look up to Ben. But this sort of concept that sort of animates Truth Revolt and Truth Revolt original videos, this concept of using the tools of the left against them, really is your vision and an extension of David's vision. Could you sort of tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to be kind of exposed to those ideas from David, and how you've helped to sort of shape them into a perspective of your own, and kind of what you see as the mission statement of Truth Revolt?
First of all, I apologize for not being able to use the mic because it's Saturday, so it's a Shabbat for me, so I can't use the mic. So I'll shout as loud as I can and speak slower than normal, which is difficult for me. So I can honestly say that in terms of the two big ideological mentors that I had in my life, David is one and Andrew Breitbart was the other. And they were both on the same page when it came to strategy. And the strategy was always that you walk toward the fire. That you take whatever they are firing at you and you just keep walking toward them and you use whatever tactics they're willing to use against you. Because we're way too polite in the conservative movement. We do this routine where we act as though if we're nice and if we're kind and if we're generous to the other side, that somehow this either wins us points with them or wins us heaven points. And because of that, we therefore ought to do this even in the face of people who call us evil on a daily basis. And David obviously has been preaching that his entire career because he was inside the left. Andrew at one point was a leftist. I was never a leftist because I grew up with mentors like David and like Andrew and like my parents. And so because of that, I kind of grew up in the milieu that suggests that you have to fight back using the tools that they have. And that's why I think when it comes to the video program at Truth Revolt Originals, that's something that you don't see a lot on the right because it is a tool of the left. Not just storytelling, but the actual medium itself. Yeah. I mean, we on the right are very fond of writing because writing is wonderful and you can get across complex and brilliant and deep ideas. But the problem is that everybody who is my age and younger, everybody who's 40 and younger, is watching videos. And it's getting to the point where that's actually moving up the age scale, not down. It's everybody who's now 60 and younger is actually watching videos and listening to podcasts and operating through a certain media. And so what we decided to do here was take the messages that David had been pushing, take the messages of conservatism, and apply them in a way that people would actually watch and people would actually care about. Because we in the conservative movement have spent our entire lives basically telling people what they ought to listen to, instead of saying, what do people want to listen to, and then how do we appeal to those people? Right? Why is it that Barack Obama can draw 30,000 people to a stadium to talk? Well, it's not because of Barack Obama, it's because Katy Perry's his opener. And so for us, the key is how do we take the material that we have and market it in a certain way. So we've really focused at Truth Revolt. The original mission of Truth Revolt, which we still do, is taking out the bad guys on the left, which is why over the last year, no one has been as successful as we have in terms of taking out media personalities. I mean, we turned Martin Bashir into an unemployed person and Piers Morgan into an unemployed person, and we turned Lena Dunham into a joke, a running joke, because she sexually molested her sister, and we have destroyed a number of major media figures on the left. But it's not enough to just tear them down. We also have to build something up in place of that. And so, I'm eager to talk about and very transparent about what exactly our budgeting constraints are in doing all of this, because the left spends literally hundreds of millions of dollars every year pushing the kind of content that we push from the other side.
Yeah.
And we could, I mean, each one of these videos, Jeremy said, each one of these videos is getting seen more than a single video, than a single episode of Al Sharpton. Well, we want to get to the point where we're getting seen more than Rachel Maddow or Al Sharpton or both of them combined, and we want to be doing it on a daily basis. And, that costs money. And so the vision is twofold. One is to knock them down, to hit them as hard as we can in the throat until they're on their ass and they don't get back up again. And the other is to then go to all of the people who they couldn't talk to, who those people were talking to, and now convince them and now work with them. And so that's really the two-pronged approach, is to hit them as hard as possible, and then to go to all the people who are not being talked to or who are being talked down to and speak to them in a language that they understand, which is why when we talk about the things that we do at Truth Revolt, we're always thinking in terms of, okay, Facebook marketing or YouTube or comic books. I mean, it's never in terms of we need another documentary that no one is going to watch except that it's been marketed on radio. I mean, Dinesh D'Souza's an outlier. Most documentaries don't get watched. What we really need is the stuff that people are going to watch and the stuff that people are going to see. And if we do that, if we build an audience big enough and powerful enough, then we really can make a dent. Because it's not enough to have the right message. It's making sure that people have the capacity to hear the right message.
Absolutely. And could you go over that stuff about hitting them in the throat again? I like that.
I just love this little stud he kicks in. I work for Truth Revolt, and it's an enormous pleasure working for Truth Revolt, and I work for another company as well. And the other company has a very, very, very large budget that gets spent on a giant marketing company, and they do all this research, and they have all these emails and all these promotional things, and it's just a giant firm that gets paid a lot of money and is designed to do promotion. And they asked me why my Truth Revolt videos do so much better, and in terms of views, because basically they're the same video, the same message with different skin. And I said, because the Truth Revolt people put a little money behind getting them viewed. And the only thing I wanted to interject here was to tell you how unbelievably wise Jeremy and Ben are, and frugal with your money. I've never, ever experienced this kind of return on investment. They spend this really remarkably, compared to what this other company spends and gets nothing. They make very, very limited, very precisely targeted purchases. And frankly, there's no point in paying us to do the videos if they don't get seen. They spend very little money and get enormous results because of the research and the wisdom that they've shown. And when we did this same sort of panel back a few months ago back in Florida, Jeremy was talking about the floor, what the floor would be with just a little bit of extra resources. But I just wanted to say, as a person who's been in both these worlds, I'm astonishingly proud of the work that these two gentlemen do, and how frugal they are with your resources and how much reach they get. It's heartbreaking. I'll just come out and say it. It's heartbreaking. And Andrew would know more about this than I do, to get a few hits, to get a very small number of hits on a video. But seriously, I can't tell you how many times, I know this must be true for them as well, where you put your heart and soul into something, you think it's a really terrific argument, you really think it can make a difference if people would just see it, and then it just sits out there and does 20, 30,000 views, and you just tears the heart out of you. I've never worked for a company that had not only a commitment to get the videos done, but market them. And I'll just close this thought by saying, what a remarkable idea, huh? What an incredibly advanced, amazing, brilliant insight. We have a product, maybe we should market and advertise the product.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond that too, because these two guys are doing something that Bill and I talked about but we've never seen it done on the right before, which is that they are essentially fishing where the fish are. They're entertaining people. If you look at a site like BuzzFeed, which has got to be one of the monster sites, it'll say, here are the 10 hottest bikinis worn by movie stars. Here are the 10 coolest cars. Here are the 10 best action scenes from a James Bond movie. And here are the 10 reasons why Hillary Clinton should be the next president. So it's kind of like putting a naked person in Macy's window, gathers a crowd, and then you deliver your message. It's a form of storytelling that is just not done. I was thinking the other day after Netanyahu made that speech before Congress, my favorite reaction to the speech came from Barack Obama, who's just satirizing Barack Obama is like being on welfare. It's like the government just supplies the satire. And Barack Obama, looked at this wonderful, impassioned speech, fighting for one of the really, truly important causes of our time. He said, it's nothing new. There was nothing new. And I thought, that's right. There is nothing new. Good and evil have been fighting since creation, and they're still fighting, and it's nothing new. Only Barack Obama thinks that he's going to redefine this endless thing. And the thing about storytelling is you hit the points that aren't new. You hit the points that are always true, that are always the same, and people recognize it from their gut. And so the things that BuzzFeed does, the things that a lot of other sites on left-wing sites do, the thing that Jon Stewart does, is he tells the story that is just essentially and forever true, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's right. And for those in the room who may not frequent BuzzFeed, BuzzFeed is the most influential news website in the world today, and they are not primarily a news website at all. They're primarily a pop culture entertainment website, and it's because they understand something that I think it's really shocking to me that we don't understand on our side, right? The right is typically populated by people who at least pay lip service to appreciating the free market, appreciating the concept of commerce and business, and a lot of people who've made a lot of money in the world of business. And yet, we treat voters and would-be voters like they're chess pieces instead of what they actually are, which is customers. And we're never trying to actually sell them what they want to buy, which is what we would do in business. We're always trying to force them to take what we want them to have, which is a bad business model, right? And we fall in love, in many cases, with the means of delivering a message, even at the expense of the efficacy of the message itself. I have a grandmother whom I love, and I'm from a very small town in Texas, and we have this local newspaper that's been there for almost as long as the town has been there, the Slaytonite. And, so for that entire time, the Slaytonite has said who married whom, had every obituary, what was the score at the high school football game last week, and this sort of information that keeps a small town moving. There's never been any news there, but other things are in the newspaper. And my Nana asked me one time, she said, how do we get more young people to read the Slaytonite? And it was a real breakthrough moment for me because I realized what a flawed question that is. Young people will never read the Slaytonite. If you went to the Slayton High School and you offered to pay every young person there $10 a week to read the Slaytonite, they still wouldn't read the Slaytonite. I mean, you could not pay them to do it. If you took a Thomas Sowell book to a college campus and said, I'll pay every freshman here $100 to read this book, not one single person will read the book and take you up on that offer, and it's a flawed question. We shouldn't even want to do that. The question we should be asking is, how do we get young people exposed to the wonderful information that's being communicated by the Slaytonite? And we should have no attachment whatsoever to the means by which we deliver that information to them. In other words, we should treat them like customers. We should see what they want to buy and then find a way to infuse our values or our information into that item that they actually want to spend their money on. And this is what Hollywood is so good at, right? James Cameron, we will write, like in the conservative nonprofit world, we're the sort of guys, we'll write a tract or a book or make a documentary about how evil the global warming hysterics are, the climate change hysterics are. And then we'll wonder why no one engages it. And then we'll go out to donors and we'll say, well, if you would give us $50,000, we could print this up and ship it out to a bunch of people who won't ever read it. But we don't say that part. It's not ever part of the pitch. But that's not what James Cameron does. James Cameron actually finds a way to get every person on planet Earth, basically, including conservatives, to pay him $15 to be indoctrinated about how we're destroying the planet. Because he makes not a documentary, but a movie, an entertaining movie with big blue people who had sex with trees. I didn't get it, honestly. I watched it. I didn't understand it. But I paid $30 between those 2 times as I was trying to figure it out. And that's how entertainment works. When you start using entertainment, you're creating a content type that people want to engage. And so one of the things that I think that we as a movement need to do, and one of the things that I'm proud to be a part of with the gentlemen here on this stage and with our other great team at Truth Revolt, is finding a way to infuse our values into content that people want to watch. And it's very gratifying for us, whether it's a movie that we've made or one of our videos, it's very gratifying when people say, I love watching that, as opposed to, I really liked what you had to say. I really liked watching it.
And that a lot of that, and folks should know, I mean, Jeremy is the guy behind the scenes. I mean, the 3 of us have our faces on the video. Jeremy is the guy behind the scenes who's putting everything together and making it work and doing the marketing. So Jeremy deserves an independent round of applause because he really is the guy actually making that. And as I said, I mean, I don't want to sound like a schnorrer here, but the reality is that, you know, the way that this works is essentially, and I'm happy to be perfectly transparent about our cost. I mean, Bill is nice when he says that we're very efficient in the way that we do our videos, and there's no question that we are. We film them all together at the same time on the same day to make sure that we are cost cutting. We actually make sure that we are doing it in the most efficient possible manner to make sure that we're not wasting anybody's money. But essentially, we've been spending about $1,000 per video on the marketing of each independent video, which means that if we're producing right now 6 videos a month, we want to get it back up to 12. If we were producing 6 videos a month, that means we're spending $6,000 a month on the marketing, and that means that for every $1,000 that's being spent, on average, you're getting 150 people watching a video for every $100. For every $1,000 we spend, we get about 100,000 views. So for every dollar you spend, 100 people are watching.
Right.
So the idea is that if we got that to $3,000 per video, right? If our budget for the marketing of each of these videos, even if we just kept the same number of videos, if our marketing were $3,000 a video, instead of spending $72,000 a year, we were spending $210,000 a year on the marketing, then you would be talking about at least 300 to 400,000 people seeing every single thing that is being said, which is an enormous number of people, particularly because, you know, people always ask, how do we merge what we do with kind of the mission of the center? And the reality is that what we do is we militarize all the content that the center provides. Yeah. Right? We rely on a lot of the content that the center provides. I mean, Bill works hand in glove with David very often in producing his scripts. David sends suggestions to me about the scripts that we should produce. And when we are using resources, we are very often using resources from places like Front Page Mag or Discover the Networks. And when we do that, we're taking content that's being seen by some people, a much smaller number of people, and we're putting it in front of literally millions of people at a time.
And it's also worth saying, Ben, to sort of complement what you're saying, so we spend $1,000, we get 100,000 sort of baseline views, but quite often one of those videos breaks out and does 200, 300, 400, a million views. If we were to triple the budget that we're spending and we got to a place where consistently 300,000 to 400,000 people are watching every video, well, first of all, Wolf Blitzer is seen by about 500,000 people a day. I mean, you're talking about a remarkable number of people watching these videos if we were spending that kind of money, but you're also, by an order of magnitude, probably raising the likelihood of one of those videos catching the wave and running up into the millions. So it's I think that if we were to triple the budget, we wouldn't be tripling our audience. If we were to triple the budget, we'd probably raise our audience 10 times over the course of a year and become a really competitive force. And that really is, we have 2 fundraising needs at Truth Revolt other than our operational costs as any program would have, and that is, and they're both marketing. We want to vastly expand the money that we're spending on our YouTube marketing so that more people see Andrew, and more people see Bill, and more people see Ben. And we want to spend more money on our Facebook marketing so that we're building a permanent audience and taking luck kind of out of our business model, taking luck out of our equation. And it's interesting in this setting. We found both that, you know, we've all spoken at events for different nonprofits around the country, Heritage Foundation or others, and everyone focuses on programs. Everyone focuses on what can we do, what can we make, what can we build. What we've come to realize, because we've really, under David's guidance, created what we think is really